Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, and that especially goes true if you listened to yesterday's show. I made a mistake on my end, and my audio was an absolute mess, but hopefully it is all fixed now. Anyway, so thank you, and a big shout out to our sponsors today. Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, just down the way from Highmark Stadium. Man, great food, great vibes. I've been doing some shows there. I'll be doing plenty more coming up here in the next few weeks as the Bills get ready for training camp. And that goes to the same for our other sponsor, Imperial Pizza. 2 locations, including my favorite one, the South Buffalo staple, 1035 Abbott Road, home of the best lunch special in town. I'll actually be live there next Thursday night. Matt Perino is going to join me for a Bills camp preview, maybe another guest as well. So be on the lookout for that. Before we get into today's show, I want to remind everybody that MafiaCon 2 is coming to Seneca 1 this year. Saturday, July 19th. Plenty of Buffalo Bills players will be there for autograph opportunities, vendors, food, media personalities, live podcasts, including this one. I'll be doing a show there live at 12:45 p.m. with Tim Graham for the second straight year. Tim just dropped a really interesting story about the Bills in Canada. Make sure you check that out on The Athletic. But anyway, that's coming up July 19th. As for today, man, I am joined by a good buddy. Been a hot minute since I've had him on. My man PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective, dude. What's going on, buddy? How you doing? How are you? How's summer going for you? We're finally cooking now with weather.
Yeah, it's been eventful, as you know. About 11 acres, and comes with that, like, we're planning on having animals and all that kind of stuff. So injuries are expected, but I don't have any animals. I don't have barns. I'm not anticipating any injuries to start. Saturday, day after 4th of July, wasn't a firework incident. I got all my fingers and everything. Tearing down some of the forest in the backfield, and I'm pulling a dead branch from the ground, and it must have caught one that was in the tree. Got me right in the eye. Had to go to the ER. Everything checked out good, but it wasn't a fun last few days of just waiting for my eye to heal. They said I'm all good now, but yeah, I'm good now. I had to go to a specialist. I think it was maybe Tuesday or Monday, one of the 2 days. They cleared me, but yeah, I couldn't see out of my right eye for a good 2 days. They were back and forth if they were going to transfer me to ECMC, depending on how bad it was. But I tried to sleep it off. I did one of those things where it's like, hey, maybe it's not as bad as it is. I'll go take a nap. And then I woke up in more pain. And my wife's like, we should probably go to the hospital just in case. I was like, yeah, it's my eyes. I'll go check it out. But I'm all clear now. It was
well, I'm glad you're all right, man. That's obviously
it was a close one.
Scary. We're going to talk some Bills and some Sabres today. Some good news, some bad news. We'll get into that here in just a second. You kind of reminded me a little bit. I did not know about that. I think maybe the 2 biggest injuries I've ever had in my life, one of them self-inflicted because I'm an absolute idiot. I want to put that out there. I'll get to that in a second. But to your point where you try to sleep it off and think everything will be all right, and then it just gets worse. When I was a freshman in high school during Christmas, winter break, whatever you want to call it, my buddy on the west side, I grew up on the west side, he had an ice hockey pond in the backyard. I don't even know if people do that anymore in this day and age, PK. But when I grew up, everybody, in the winters in Buffalo, you would build, you would water down your yard, you would fix it up, and you'd have a nice little pond to play ice hockey with your boys or whatever. Anyway, it was not good ice. It was not well kept. And I kind of went to stop, and it just felt awkward. Like it kind of got stuck, my skate a little bit. Anyway, felt back pain, and I go to bed. I'm like, oh, all right, my back's killing me. I was a freshman in high school at the time. Woke up the next day, could not walk. Ended up going to the hospital, which I remember because, and this is not a fun fact, this is a very not fun fact, but the ship, or the explosion, oh, God, what was it, man? Oh, I can't remember. Yes, I believe so. It disintegrated, man. It was that day. I was in the waiting room in the ER that day. Anyway, I ended up spending almost 2 weeks in the hospital in traction. I like literally ruptured and herniated multiple discs.
Jeez.
And I had to have a tutor come to my house for the next 5 months. I never went back to school my freshman year because that's how serious of an injury it turned out to be. In fact, I had to transfer. I was going to McKinley High School. I ended up going to Lafayette my sophomore year, in part because I was in a program and I would have had to repeat my freshman year if I would have stayed at McKinley. So yeah, man, I didn't even know. I was like, I'll sleep it off. The other one was about a decade or so ago. I was definitely drinking way too much, and I fell down one step at a house party here at my house, same house that I'm still in right now. And why am I telling this story and embarrassing myself? What am I thinking here? Anyway, I'll finish it. I slipped, like there were 2 stairs, like maybe 10 inches apart. It's not like it was like it's big, and I fell and it hurt, and I just shook it off. And I was also again intoxicated, drinking. I went to bed that night and I got out of bed the next morning, screamed in pain, ended up going to the ER. Turns out I broke my leg and I tore tendons in my foot and ended up having to have surgery instead of going right to the hospital, which again, I don't know what they would have done for me. I was pretty lit up, but I slept it off. So I guess the moral of the story is if you got something wrong with you folks, don't sleep that shit off, man. Go get your shit checked out. Anyway, that aside, so you own a home now.
Yep.
Do you have kind of like a timeline or a goal for when you hope to be able to get like the projects that you're working on right now done?
The main one was the fence. Got all the fencing done. That's actually bigger than the lot we had in Niagara Falls. Mostly just get it prepped. We still don't have a tractor yet, so my field is out of control. It's pretty bad back there. But once we get the tractor, a bigger project can get done. But after spending so much money on the fence and all the other projects and then the down payment on the house, we're probably a year or 2 away from the tractor, even though I'm trying to convince my wife into it. Timeline, within the next 5 years, kind of want to be set up where it's just minor projects. But my body's going to be broken and bruised for the next 5 years.
Well, you got
probably
time,
a few more ER projects. More trips.
When you have, well, I don't want to call it a hobby because you're building something, but when you get so involved with something, and I've thought about this a lot lately. Last thing, we're going to get into some sports talk. Tough shit, everybody. This is my show, and this is what I like to do. With my guests, have some banter with the ladies and gentlemen to come on the show. But anyway, do you ever find yourself, especially like in the summer when there's a lot going on, or you just get into one thing that you don't have time anymore? Like in your case, it's a lot of house stuff going on. In my case, it's having a full-time job and it's doing a show here 5 days a week and having a part-time gig. Lots of things that I've always enjoyed doing in the past. You find yourself not having the time to do them anymore. Like, is there anything you could think of that you used to really enjoy doing a lot, and now you just look and you're like, man, it's not that I don't like it anymore. It's just I don't have time. Do you feel anything like that?
Well, I am going on a nice trip at the end of July, and I'll be able to do this activity. But for the last 10, 15 years, really like disc golfing because I suck at ball golf. But it's just a cheap sport that you can, once you got the disc, you just go out and play. It's not like you got to charge to go on the courses and everything.
Huge
I was really into that
when I lived there.
But it was probably like every weekend, every other weekend for 5-10 years. And now with all this stuff and being married and going on other trips, it's kind of got pushed to the back burner. But me and a couple buddies are going to Vermont because they're 3rd and 5th ranked courses in the entire world are up there. So we're going there the end of July, early August to go do those. But yeah, I don't do that as much. I thought you were going to ask, when you're doing a project, do you just do it and get blinded by everything else and ignore all your other responsibilities and just do it until the project's done? Because my wife hates when I do that. I get into it. There's some things that I'll put off and I'll get to it. But when I'm actually doing it, it's nonstop. I don't take breaks. There's no dinner. There's no lunch. I just do it until the job's done. She hates it. I thought that's what you were going to ask. Like, do you just do it until it's done? She hates when I do that.
Procrastinating. It's funny you say disc golf, by the way. That was such a big thing. What I would do when I lived in Florida for 5 years, we played it a lot. I got COPD, so I can't do too many things, but that's still one thing I could do. And to your point, it's cheap, man. You get yourself a couple discs, even if you spend a couple bucks on them, you got them, you go play the courses. Some of them are free, some of them aren't, and Florida, there was like a league, but it was not a competitive league. It was it was somewhat competitive, but it was more fun than anything else. A social league. So we'd go there, have a good time with people, have a couple pops and stuff like that. I actually miss it. For me, it's kind of, I still do love baseball, but I just don't watch it anymore. I just don't have time anymore. Like I used to be so into fantasy. I could tell you pretty much the roster and stats for like every team, the prospects, everything, you name it. Now, there's guys on the All-Star team, PK, that I'm like, I barely even know who this is. Like a Cy Young candidate, I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's
Yeah, I thought
good,
he
I
sucked a
guess.
couple years ago. Where'd he come from?
Yeah, and I used to be pretty good, and now I'm terrible, man. Like I'm near the bottom of the league. So it's baseball for me, and it's also reading, man. I used to love reading, and I can't find the time anymore to get into reading. Reading actually directly kind of correlated to me wanting to start this podcast. Like you and I are about to get into some sports talk, but right now we're just having a life conversation, and that's what I love doing. And when I first started my show, it wasn't really a Bills or a Sabres podcast. It was about getting to know the people who cover the Bills and the people who cover the Sabres and some of the athletes who played or have played before. And we wouldn't even really talk about the Bills or Sabres. It would just be about life. And that's kind of what I was like with just reading. Like I love sports books, but not necessarily about a team. Like I love reading about players and biographies and stuff like that and behind the scenes stuff. That was always what interested me. But anyway, it depresses me a little bit that I just don't have the time to do that anymore. Let me ask you this as we transition into today's topics. Are you the kind of guy, like if your parents were going to ask you, hey, PK, man, so I got some good news and I got some bad news. What would you like to hear first? I'm going to pose that question to you because the good news is we could talk Bills. The bad news is we're going to talk Sabres. And I'm going to ask you, what would you like? Do you want to start with the good news or do you want to start with the bad news?
Growing up, it was usually bad news, bad news. So this is a positive for me. I'll do bad news, then good news, so we can end on a good note.
I was the same way too, man. I always was like, get the shitty part over with, and then we will, we always try to end on a good note, like you said. Let's start here. What are your thoughts? Because we haven't talked since, well before free agency even started. We all know where the Sabres are at right now. The biggest lingering piece, of course, is Bo Byram. What will happen with him? I do think Kevin Adams is certainly open to and probably wants to trade him. However, he certainly feels like he has the leverage right now that he's in no rush anymore. The team went to arbitration, so there's no offer sheet. We thought that would be in the mix. It's not. We sit here, what is today's date? July 9th, which July 9th is 9 days after free agency starts. But in hockey, that's often like an eternity. Almost everything big that happens in the first 72 hours or so. Where are you at right now? What are your thoughts on Bo Byram still being a Buffalo Sabre, has not been traded? Do you think it's a case of there's just no market for him? Do you think it's a case where maybe teams around the league just don't, they don't respect Kevin Adams or what he's asking for? Why is he here, in your opinion? Should he be here? Where are we at, and where do you think it's going with Bo Byram? That is a loaded-ass question, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, I think it all ties together with all the topics with the Sabres here. But I fully expect come October, he's still going to be on the roster. I think he's going to be the pairman for Rasmus Dahlin. If there was a situation, I do like him in that position because I don't think he's a standalone defender. I don't think he can carry a defensive pair, but he played his best when he was next to Dahlin, and Dahlin makes everybody better. But I don't think that there's a lack of a market out there. I think it's that there's just not something out there that is better than what Byram is for the Sabres right now. Like they're not going to get a top 6 winger for Bo Byram. It's not going to happen. But I think I'll give Adams credit for this. If you carry him into October, November, and December, and there's a massive injury with a righty defender out there, his value goes up. But I think his value is what it is right now. And what frustrates me is, he wants a bigger role. It's not that he hates Buffalo. That's been a
Right.
known thing. That's the topic of conversation nonstop with Byram compared to Paterka. But I think right now, what you would get for him is not better than having him on the team. I think he adds more value to this team, whether you want to say they're a playoff team, whether you want to say they're going to be in the bottom of the division, or conference, whatever it is. I think right now, for what you would get for him, I think having him on the team is better than what you would be able to get for him, because I think you would get maybe a prospect and a pick for him right now. I just, and I think WGR was talking about this. The GMs around hockey right now are just so much smarter than they used to be, because I don't think he's a defender that can carry a pair like I mentioned, but I think he's a great partner that can be on a top defensive line that can play 25 to 27 minutes a night, which what he'll be here in Buffalo. I think currently where the market is, and as we're sitting here July 9th, I think the best play is to sit and wait on him. I don't think an offer sheet's coming, and I think you just sit on it and hopefully, and it's bad at root for an injury, but if another team has an injury go down, his value does go up, because okay, he's still available. Sabres are still willing to move him.
From what I've heard, and it's in line with what's out there too, is, and you hit on this, Bo Byram, unlike JJ Paterka, Bo Byram does not hate being in Buffalo. Bo Byram does not hate being a Buffalo Sabre, but two things. A, he wants to get paid. B, he wants a significant role on this team, which he wants to be a star. He wants to be an alpha on the team. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some players are just happy with whatever role they have to help the team win. And some players want to be the guy. And he's one of those people who, by all accounts, wants to be the guy. And that's okay. The problem is there's just not a real, like for the power play minutes, for example, there's just not a great path for him. The one thing you've brought up multiple times, man, and I'm with you there, is even if he was only good in one scenario, and that would be being Rasmus Dahlin's partner, one of the few things which we'll talk about in a second here that I do like about the Paterka trade and getting Kesselring here is it sure as hell seems that Kesselring and Power is set as your second pairing right there. And if they're not, and if Owen Power struggles, then we got an Owen Power issue at that point. Right. I hate Samuelson being on this team, but it sure as shit seems like he's going to be here and he'll play with Timmins or Bryson, whatever the seventh, Johnson, whoever the other defenseman ends up being. The path for Bo Byram playing on that top line defense with Rasmus Dahlin, which he has played well with Rasmus. I mean, Rasmus, yes, he makes everybody look better, but let's also give some credit to Bo Byram. He's a pretty good hockey player. And it was especially in certain situations. And with Rasmus, he's played well. Conversely, the argument against that is that Bo Byram, a little too more offensive and a little irresponsible on the defensive side, and makes Rasmus maybe a little more tentative to jump in on some plays. So you do have that as well. But for now, to your point, and I don't think he's going anywhere anytime real soon either. Do you think, okay, now forget about what I'm not forget about, but you're saying you don't think what's out there is something that Kevyn Adams should trade for. And I certainly can relate to that. Do you think part of that is a, how do I say this right? A lack of respect, I think, for Kevyn Adams. It just, you know what he doesn't have, he's not holding the cards. Even though he has the player, he's got to fold at some point. We're not going to give up whatever for this. Like if it would have been a different GM, maybe he commands a little more respect. Maybe he gets a better deal. But you got anyone out of a no trade clause is not coming to Buffalo. Kevyn Adams has made it clear, which is confusing me, and we'll get to that shortly here, is he won't take any fee. He doesn't want futures. He wants guys who are going to help this team win right now. Do you think Kevyn Adams, do you think maybe it's the ask is part of the reason why Bo Byram is still here? That you think the ask is unreasonable and that other GMs are just not really to work with him?
I think it's a good combo. I don't think he has the respect around the league, because I think part of it is you're going in 6, you've never made the playoffs. And part of it is a lot of the GMs around the league are thinking, we can just wait you out. You're probably going to get fired in January. And then the next GM who's going to try to earn a spot, maybe we can get Bo Byram for cheaper. And maybe he's going to unload to change up the system here. But I also think that, hey, you moved out JJ Paterka that moved a top 6 player off your lineup, you don't have anybody to replace him. I fully believe that he thought that he could get a top 6 winger for Bo Byram, and the market is just not there. So it could be a combo of the other GMs around the league see the situation and see Kevin Adams in that role, but also see, I'm not going to give you a top 6 forward for this guy. He's not worth it. Whether you believe it or not, I just think the other GMs around the league might, and I think the market's telling you, I don't think the GMs around the league view Bo Byram worthy of a top 6 winger, which, I mean, you can judge it how you want, but I think that both the asking and the respect that Adams has around the league are a good combo of a reason why you don't really see a deal done right now.
I agree with you about Bo Byram by himself not netting a top 6 forward. And that's not necessarily a Kevin Adams thing. That's I don't think Bo Byram is worth a top 6 forward thing more than anything else. And as much as I hate giving Kevin Adams the benefit of the doubt, it is July 9th. Things could change. Things maybe they do change. But what about giving, Byram and something else? The Sabres do have pipeline pieces. And I thought it was borderline shocking that I almost said the Bills. I almost do that once a week. That the Sabres used their 9th overall pick.
Yep.
But, Byram and maybe Oslin, or Byram and Rosine and something else, or even Byram and Hellenius. You get into territory where, this leads to the urgency thing that I'm talking about. It's like, well, we'll be patient. We'll wait. Somebody's going to give us something good for Byram, and we want this, but we don't want to have to give up that. And it doesn't work that way when you're a bad team. And again, you can scratch off a lot of candidates because anybody in the NHL with a no trade clause ain't coming here right now, man. And there's more guys in hockey with no trade clauses than any other sport. Let's go back to the draft. Going into it, I think I would say, PK, you and we did have a conversation about this, like things we would expect to happen in the offseason. But Turka getting traded was on the table. That shouldn't stun anybody. Maybe how quickly it came 24 hours after and yet another disastrous Kevin Adams press conference where, he was throwing shade at the media. It was the media and misinformation and all this bullshit. And then he gets traded 24 hours later. Maybe that part's surprising. But JJ getting traded, not a big surprise. The Sabres, we also thought there'd be a good chance that they would trade the 9th pick, whether it was for somebody straight up or whether it was part of a package. Bo Byram felt like he was the lock to be traded somewhere, yet here we are. He's still here. The Sabres used their pick. I guess we could go with 2 directions. Let's start here. Right now, with Byram, still not signed, he's going to arbitration. The Sabres got like around $13 million in dead cap. What has been probably the single biggest beef that even the most, the most optimistic Sabres fans can't even defend, and that's the salary cap and how much cap space they've had each of like the last 5 years or so. Well, right now they got like $13 million. And even if they gave Tuck $40 million a year, that don't kick in until next year. It won't have nothing to do with the cap this year. It sure don't seem like and if they get a top 6 guy, they're going to trade Byram as part of it. So there's some more money getting exchanged. Here we are again, PK. The Sabres are sitting on a lot of cap space, even more than they've had before. How does that make you feel right now?
Yeah, real quick, because I do agree packaging Bo Byram with another prospect, and it got me thinking: has Kevin Adams really ever packaged 2 players to go out and get 1 player? And I look back, it hasn't happened for that type of pack. I know that Dylan Cousins, it was a 2 for 2 with the pick swap, but the last time before that, it was 2021 when he sent out Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar for Bjork and a 2nd round pick. So he for some reason, it's always 1 player out the door for either 1 or 2. So I don't know if it's just too difficult for him to add another player to it. But yeah, I'm on board. If you pair one of those many, many prospects that, Rosine, he seems like at this point, is he more of a tweener, or do you still have hope for him? Same with a bunch of other prospects down there. But to talk about the salary cap space, yes, any other GM or any other team or any other situation, I would understand. Okay, yeah, you want Bo Byram on this team. You don't want him to move for future, so you need that money in the bank. But this is the Sabres we're talking about. They haven't spent to the cap and haven't used that cap space in how many years? I think that's a BS excuse. I think that is just in their back pocket. They're like, hey, why don't we keep this amount of money here? And I'm not saying they have a salary cap floor or all this other crap that's out there, whatever. I personally believe they have a salary cap that they're sticking to, but I think they're using that as an excuse, and it's in their back pocket of, hey, we can use this. That way, when it comes time in December and we still have $6, $7, $8 million in the bank here, we can say, oh, that was set aside in case somebody did offer sheet Bo Byram. That way we needed to have it, and we didn't want futures for it. We didn't want to lose them for futures. We needed money to be able to do that. I think that's just a built-in excuse. I don't think they're ever going to spend to it. And again, goes back to a losing culture. You need to make the playoffs. This has been 14 years. Your GM's into year 6. Either he's not allowed or he's unwilling to go to the cap floor, because there's no way you got Byram, Timmons, and Levi that are going to equal all that amount of money, the $12 million that they have sitting right there. So I think come December, come October, they're going to have $6, $7, $8 million sitting in the bank.
If there's one thing that's consistent about the Sabres, it's the ability for Kevin Adams to just piss people off every time he opens his mouth. I went back to the Baturkas talk, and then he gets traded the next day. Bo Byram, all this cap space, he said that they strategically did this to prevent an offer sheet. Well, at the end of the day, all they had to do was offer arbitration, which they did, and there is no offer sheet anymore. So again, it's just another bullshit built-in excuse. And I got news for you, man. When you lose 14 years in a row not making the playoffs, you have lost the benefit of the doubt, especially when I would say the biggest beef I think that people have with this team nowadays is it just doesn't feel like there's a true commitment to winning. It feels like there's hope. I hope this young player steps up. I hope this, I hope that. We're not going out. We're not making the splashes. We're not showing a sense of urgency. Whether you loved, which I'm going to ask you about this after the break, and think about this, everyone, as you ponder this during the break. Whether you loved the J.J. Peterka trade or whether you hated it, it was a hockey trade, okay? They got worse at scoring. They got better on the blue line. That's the definition of what a hockey trade is. But to not use the 9th overall pick as an asset to get something that helps you now, to still have Bo Byram on the team and not trade him, or even if you sign him and you still had money, it's not like, you signed Bo Byram and now you don't have any more money, to not swing a move for prospects or a free agent or whatever. And there were some out there, there's not really now, but there were, to still be sitting on where you're at and to use the Bo Byram offer sheet potential when all you had to do was what the Sabres ultimately did anyway as an excuse to still have that money just doesn't resonate with me. I think it's complete and utter bullshit. Let's take a break. Come back on the other side. And I want to ask you about that actual J.J. Peterka trade. In terms of a hockey trade, what you thought of that. So we'll get to that, finish up with the Sabres, and then jump on some fun, good news, Bill stuff. Boy, you could sure feel me getting fired up right there before the break, man. My blood, I think it's in my DNA. If you talk about the Sabres for more than 5 to 7 minutes, it's going to get me going. By the way, if you happen to be watching this on the video side, you could already see it. If you're listening, we do have Talking Buffalo apparel now, hoodies, polos, t-shirts, bunch of stuff. You go to talkingbuffalo.buffonweck.com. I'll put a link to all that in the show notes. And if you buy any gear at all and you wear it, take a screenshot, send it to me. I'll throw you up on the show, give you some flowers. Big shout out on the show. Anyway, all right, getting back to other Sabres before we talk Bills here. The trade. All right, so the first move, the big move, a hockey move. Again, some love it, some hate it, some kind of could see both sides. Where did you land on that in terms of what the Sabres did?
I didn't understand the rush of it. It seemed like a Jack Eichel wants out, you drag that one on. Reinhart wants out, you drag that one on. And I know Adams only had bits and pieces of that came at the beginning of his tenure, but it seemed like, I know there were whispers behind the scenes, but you still had his rights for how long? Was an RFA. I understand the feared offer sheet that comes around once or twice a year, but I didn't understand the how quick it happened. Like I understand he was after Kesselring for a long time, is what he was saying, and that was the masterpiece that he really wanted for it. But it just seemed like there were that was your biggest trade piece, and it kind of got moved in the split second. It felt like it just seemed like he could have negotiated. And again, I don't know exactly what happened. Whatever, maybe this was the best offer he could have gotten. It just seemed like he could have negotiated against other GMs. That's where it felt like that's why you have a helper to the GM. That's why Eric Stahl's here. You have backup to say, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. Negotiate against other GM. Hey, I got this offer. What can you do for me? So I didn't hate it. It felt like they probably should have gotten a bit more for it, like a better piece than just Josh Doan. And you can argue what kind of piece he might end up being, but it just felt a little light. That, and again, maybe Kesselring is going to come out and be that partner that unlocks. Maybe you'll get a 2-for-1 there. Maybe Owen Power steps up his game because he finally has a partner that he can rely on next to it. I think that's what Kevin Adams is hoping for. But if that doesn't pan out and Kesselring is just another secondary pairing and Owen Power doesn't get unlocked, it seems like this could be another, hey, JJ Peterka is going to Utah. Utah is going to win the Stanley Cup next year. It just feels like that could possibly be it. It just felt a little light. I didn't hate it. I'm not on the fence saying, hey, you got nothing for it. I actually like the last year Savoy deal where you got McLeod for that deal. I love that trade because you traded a prospect for it. This one felt a little light to me.
That was a wonderful supplementary comment, what you said about if Kesselring, don't compare Kesselring to what JJ Peterka does.
Right.
If Kesselring can help Owen Power become the type of player that Dahlin, or not Dahlin, not even Dahlin, we'll say as great as Dahlin is, that Dahlin and Samuelson and several others couldn't, and Owen Power takes that next step and becomes the type of franchise cornerstone player, in part because he's playing with Kesselring, that does add a lot of value to the trade that we really don't think much about. We're just thinking, well, it's Peterka, and then it's Doan, and it's Kesselring. But if Kesselring can help Power elevate to where we all think he's capable of getting to, that becomes a lot different trade on there. I'll give the Sabres that, and that's a really good point, BK. But, let's look at this in totality, okay? Again, a team that had plenty of cap room, a team that has missed the playoffs for 14 consecutive years, a team that had some pretty damn good trade ammunition between Peterka, between Byram, between the 9th overall pick, which certainly had value, between Hellenius, maybe Oslin, maybe some other younger players in the organization too, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty. And what have they done? They got rid of a top 6 forward. They added a top 4 defenseman. We'll even call that a wash, okay? Let's call that a wash, all right? They added Doan, another bottom 6 forward. They added another guy. Forgive me, I can't even remember the goddamn name of the guy. He was a $1.8 million. I know they gave him. Basically, he's a kind of an upgrade over Lafferty in his role, okay? I'm sure you'll come up with the name here in a second. But anyway, they add that. They extend or re-sign whatever Jack Quinn for 2 years. And they kind of swapped out backup goalies. All right. Reimer's out. Lyon is in. And I'll give Lyon Ben, he's probably better than Reimer. But is that enough? Is that enough on a team that should be throwing every dart at the board in the world? A team that should be throwing caution to the wind. A team that has a general manager in the last year of his contract. A team that has a head coach in the last year of his contract. It should be, we ain't got shit to lose, man. Let's go for it right now. Let's do some bodacious stuff. And they just haven't even come close to that at this point. And I don't think that they're going to.
Yeah. I mean, if it goes back to any other team, I would feel good about this. I didn't hate any of the moves. I thought he upgraded Lafferty. I think I like the potential of Josh Doan. I like them upgrading the defense because the defense needed to be upgraded. It's just, you're kind of just moving the chess pieces around the board without actually making any moves right now. It seems like a lot of these are lateral moves. You didn't make that big splash. Like, I know this has been a pipe dream ever since Ristolainen was still on this team, and you wanted to trade Ristolainen for Ehlers, but it felt like you needed to make that big move, and it just didn't happen. And your biggest move was bringing in Alex Lyon to compete with UPL. Pretty much, that was your biggest free agency move. It's just it's if you take out, and I know you can't, but I'm trying to find some positives in this, so it's not completely negative. If you take out the 14-year drought and you take out the 6 years Kevin Adams been, I've liked his off seasons. I've liked the moves. That's what's so frustrating is I like some of these moves. You're improving some areas, like Lafferty's improvement was an improvement there, but it seems like it's all for loss because come season time, I just don't think this team is talented enough to make the playoffs. And yes, it still feels like it was 2 years after they missed the playoffs by 1 point. And it's okay if JJ Peterka, if Jack Quinn takes that next step, we're going to be there. And it's relying on Dylan Cousins to have another career year. It's relying on Alex Tuck to have another career year. It's relying on Tage Thompson to stay healthy. Darlene to do. It's relying on Zach Benson to take that next step and grow 3 more inches. It's relying on Jack Quinn to stay healthy and be that type of player that we all hoped he could have been. It's relying on these players. Is Alex Zucker to remain being what he was last year, relying on McLeod. It's a lot of hopes and ifs. And if these all pan out, you could be a playoff team. You're in 14 years and GM for 6. You can't rely on hopes and ifs. You got to go out and get these players that you know will take this team to the next level. And I just don't see that it was done. And I see that this is going to be another team that, I think I've said it multiple times, come January or February, if this team's out of it by 6, 10, 12 points, you're going to be hearing definite whispers that Darlene is frustrated and wants out. I don't think it was just smoke last year. I really don't. I think that was a real thing, and he was pissed off that it got leaked out. If you're going to hear some bad blood here, if Darlene wants out, man, I don't know how you recover. I don't know how you're already recovering, but if Darlene is the next one, it's going to be bad. I just don't see the good moves they made that pay off in the long run.
In your answer there, you kind of had, if you read between the fine print, you kind of answered what I was going to ask you. And that was, if I forced you to be a salesperson right now, give me some hope, man. I'm a Sabres fan, or I'm clinging for something. Give me. And you did put on an impressive display of what ifs, if Benson grows, if Kulik grows, if Quinn stays healthy and he improves he kind of gave us some signs near the end of last year. If Power could play well with Kesselring. And by the way, it was Justin Danforth, by the way, the guy earlier. Apologies to him and all of his fans for not knowing his name. Hey, he's fine. He's what you're talking about, the kind of semi-lateral move. Maybe Lyon at worst will be a solid backup, and if UPL falters, maybe he wrestles, maybe he's the 1A, not necessarily the 1, but the 1A there. There's lots of what ifs. Darlene playing a full season with Byram, and he ain't got to switch shit around. He's out playing with someone else every other game. There's a lot of what ifs that if you're going to try to sell, I guess, though, the thing is, how can this organization, last point here, how can the Sabres organization realistically expect their fans to believe in them anymore when you have an off season that to this point, and maybe something crazy happens tomorrow or before October, who knows, but as things stand right now, PK, how are you supposed to believe in this team that things are going to be different? And by the way, we're going back to Kyle Okposo now. It's the last guy to get more than $10 million in a contract from the Buffalo Sabres, who's not one of their own, and not counting the Josh Norris trade besides that. Anyway, how does if you're, I don't know that Terry Bagula cares, so I don't know who does care. Lindy Ruff cares. I know he cares. How does Lindy Ruff expect you to realistically believe? Which, by the way, last point, we haven't even talked about this whole show. You want to talk about a rant? Man, Kevin Adams, Lindy Ruff knows what he's doing. The coach. Well, guess what? The whole freaking coaching staff is back. They're all back. Special teams sucked. Defense sucked. Kevin Adams allegedly told Bagula he shared those concerns, and they still got the same coaches anyway. How are you supposed to believe in this team, PK?
So to believe, I can't. I'm handing in my 2 weeks. I can't do it. There's no belief. I bit the line last year and I got hooked in. That was stupid me. I told myself I'm never going to do it again. But what I can say to at least get people in the seats, this is where I'll be a salesperson. If you really want to see one of the best defenders in person for while it lasts for the next few months, you have to buy tickets because Darlene will not be in a Sabres uniform very much longer. If you love hard shots, Tage Thompson will not be in a Sabres uniform very much longer. So if you want to see really elite players in a Buffalo Sabres uniform in person, buy tickets before February because they might not be around very much longer.
By the way, I've said this before on the show. I feel so bad for those guys. And also, is it telling you at all? I mean, look, it's only July 9th, something could happen. But I would have thought maybe a priority on July 1st would have been, let's get Alex Tuck done. Let's give him some good money. If that dude don't want to sign an extension, and I'm not saying he don't, but if he don't, and he says, no hometown discount, I can go to Vegas or back to Vegas or wherever and go get my bag. If that dude does not want to be here long term, and I'm not saying he doesn't, but if that's the case, forget about it. You forget about it because ain't nobody going to want to be here. One last thing. Remember Vince Carter? I think it was Vince Carter who famously said, I got one more in me. I think it was Vince who said that.
Yep.
Do we got one more in us to root? Let's just say it gets to be November, early December, and this team's what I think they're going to be, which is hovering around the bottom 3 of the conference or so. Do we got one more in us to get into, let's root for Gavin McAdamode, gag for Gavin, whatever you want to call it. Are we going to get one more? You want to be excited? Let's root for another tank type of season for the Sabres. You got one more left in you? Because I think I might.
Me personally, no, but I do think there's going to be stragglers like you out there that are going to be able to do it. I mean, to me, I've always said it. You want the fans mad at you because that shows passion. That shows that they care. When it gets all quiet and the stands get empty, that's when you need to worry because they stop caring. I can't get into it. Like if they flounder, it's going to be, I told you so. What did you expect? And then I wouldn't be shocked if Kevin Adams is back for year 7. I honestly wouldn't be shocked whatsoever, but I can't get it in me. That would involve caring, and I just don't have a soul for them anymore.
Well, if Jeremy White and Joe DiBiase get on the radio and piss Mike Harrington off and get into that gag for Gavin mode, I will absolutely. Along. I will join the band. I will offer my services for free because if you're going to suck, I want to. You know what? He's not going to blow it up anyway. Never mind. Forget it. Because you know what? I was going to say, they're going to blow it all up. No, they're not. Seth Appel to get promoted, and they'll do one or two other stupid things, whatever. I'm done talking about them. Way too much Sabres talk here. I do want to talk Bills. Good news, bad news. We did the bad news. Get into some good news. We could talk about Josh Allen for days. Training camp is coming. Something that I noticed, I was looking around, fishing around for some stats and metrics going into training camp here for the Bills. And, I go back and I listen to shows and the guests that I've had on, yourself, Matt Warren, Joe from Queens, lots of people. And I realize, and it's my fault, we don't spend enough time talking about the Bills' offensive line. And this is a unit to me that is so vastly underrated. And I saw a metric from PFF just the other day. The offensive line is ranked number 3 on the PFF countdown behind Philly and Denver, okay? I'm going to read this real quick. Per PFF, Bills offensive line allowed 160 pressures in 2024, a league low sacks on 673 passing plays, leading to a 6th-ranked 87.7 PFF pass block efficiency rating. Now, look, obviously Josh Allen could take some pass rushes and make you look silly and avoid sacks like few others can, of course. But I wanted to talk a little bit, PK, about this Bills offensive line, how important it's been. I think how underrated it's been. And it's a unit that you need to, an offensive line needs to have continuity and consistency. And I think, other than Josh, of course, that when you look at the Buffalo Bills roster as a team right now, do you think you can make an argument that the Bills offensive line might be right behind Josh, the best asset that this organization has?
Yeah, I think no question. And to go back to us not talking enough about it, maybe you can give yourself some credit with this, because when you don't talk about offensive linemen, that's usually a good thing,
Sure.
that we have no worries about them whatsoever. Yes, they probably deserve more flowers and more praise, but when you're not talking about them, it's usually a good thing for them. But yeah, besides Josh Allen, I think they're easily the number 2 ranked position on this team, the most valuable, the highest rated ranking. I mean, yes, you hit the nail on the head. Josh Allen can adjust to some of the errors that they might make in live time, but they're a good group of players out there. And Brandon Beane did a really good job of bringing those type of players in and fixing the holes and plugging the holes. But I think really Eric Wood's one of the biggest ones. Aaron Kramer. I mean, getting him back into this organization as
Yeah,
an offensive line coach, that's vastly underrated, because he is a wizard on that line, and he can turn average players into very good players and very good players into very great players. So I think along with the offensive line, Aaron Cromer doesn't get enough flowers as well. Again, that is kind of a compliment when you don't talk about them enough, but I
I
think
agree.
combined, I think that's one of the pieces that you can put on the field each and every week and not really have to worry about anything besides like a handful of things, which is going to happen because other teams have talented players too. But I think the offensive line clearly is, and everybody's seen it now, one of the best in the entire league.
Yeah, and without having the metrics to back up what I'm saying right now, the offensive line probably is in the top half of like false starts, things like that. Deion Dawkins loves to get him a hole, or Spencer Brown loves to hold on to some jerseys. But yeah, look, man, Deion Dawkins is a little long in the tooth now. He's been, second round pick from 2017, but he's a multiple time Pro Bowler who's played at a borderline all pro level, and he's been awesome at protecting Josh's bright side. He's kind of been like a no-brainer almost, sort of, on this offensive line. But you look at the rest of them. I remember, Spencer Brown, a third round pick. He was okay. Then he was pretty bad and he was hurt. And I remember this. Brandon Beane sat there. So last year would be 2024. He got the extension. The year before that, during the offseason, talking about his back not being right and that was a factor and that they still believed in him. And I'm gonna be honest with you, at the time I was like, I don't.
Same.
Go get a
Yep.
tackle
Me too.
on day 2 of the draft or whatever. Well, they didn't. And he's become a stud. He's become one of the best right tackles in football. And they gave him an extension a year before they should have. And they probably saved $5 or $6 million by doing it. Connor McGovern deserves a lot of credit. I mean, this is a dude who they signed as a guard. And, you cut Mitch Morse and Connor McGovern. I was scared shitless last year that there's going to be a lot of issues with him snapping the ball and stuff. Nope. No problem at all. Cyrus Torrance, a second round guard. He comes in. I felt like they almost handed him the job as a rookie over Ryan Bates at camp, but hey, so far so good, right? And David Edwards has been really, really solid. And maybe the most impressive thing, PK, about this unit, 2 years now, one guy has missed one game because of an injury. And that was Spencer Brown against the Chiefs. And it didn't matter because Ryan Vandermark stepped in, played fine, and the Bills beat the Chiefs in Buffalo. Josh Allen wins Player of the Week that game. Yeah, dude, it's just, I don't know. I think there's a comfort to having a strong offensive line. And a lot of years with the Bills, they would have a standout lineman or two. Like Eric Wood was, a good offensive lineman. I wouldn't say Eric Wood played on a lot of great offensive lines. Yeah, it's just, it's a real comforting thing when you could call an offensive line underrated, vastly underrated. I just feel like that's a comforting thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, you're bringing back a lot of the backups as well. And I think that speaks to it, that the quality of the backups that are there that can fill in. You already mentioned Ryan Vandermark. Alec Anderson's on the line every other week as a swing tackle as well. I think while Brandon Beane hasn't been able to nail the defensive line, he's absolutely hit a home run with the offensive line year in and year out. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I saw a Josh Allen stat. I don't know if you knew this. I just saw it on the Twitter X machine yesterday. Josh Allen's averaging 37.1 touchdowns per season right now. The most in the history of the NFL through the first 5 seasons, minimum of 5 seasons played. I saw this, a couple people on Twitter. I never see who to credit it to. Second place was Peyton Manning, 3 touchdowns less. And that's not much surprise. I mean, look, we know Josh is great, and we've admitted to being a little bit spoiled sometimes watching him play, but he's starting to get like numbers on a historical context that are just blowing everybody away. In this case, yeah, just the most touchdowns per season ever. As great as he is, as much as we know he is, and as much as we do talk about him, do you still almost feel like there's a level where we take him almost for granted?
So I think this is where it's beneficial that we cover the Bandits, because seeing what Dane Smith and Josh Byrne do on the field, and we have to remind ourselves this isn't normal, this isn't human. Not every other team
Hmm.
gets to see this. It has an effect with Josh Allen. We're doing this show. You do it every single day of the week. I do it once a week during the summer and then 2 weeks during the winter. But I also have to pinch myself and go like, this isn't normal. Not all humans do this. Not all quarterbacks do this. Remember the days before Josh Allen and be grateful what you have. What he does and what he is able to do on the field, and it still brings me back. And my brother gives me a hard time all the time because I wanted Josh Rosen and anybody but Josh Allen, and so happy I was wrong. But you have to remind yourself how actually insanely talented that he's going to go down as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Whether he wins a Super Bowl or not, what he's doing on the field, he coming from where he did in college to what he's doing now, it doesn't happen. And that's why I hate when people use Josh Allen as an example of like, oh, this quarterback coming out of college, he could be the next Josh Allen if he fixes this. No, not there's one Josh Allen. Like there was one Michael Vick, there was one Tom Brady, there's one Josh Allen. And what's scary is last year was the first time he won MVP. He can continue to be good and great and better. And as he continues to maybe hone back on his running, his passing is just going to have to be relied upon even better. And I think he's just going to get better and better and better as a passer. And once he actually has somebody down the field that can catch a football, oh, those numbers are going to get even better.
If you want testament, everyone out there listening, to how great Josh Allen really is at this point of his career, which also is testament to an underrated offensive line, which we just talked about. So you have an MVP quarterback, literally. You have an offensive line that's among the best in football. Bill Barnwell, and he just got released here on Wednesday as we record this. I haven't dove into who's where or what on this list, but the Bills, he has ranked just 28th in the league when it comes to offensive skill position players. That's 32, 31, 30, 29. That's fifth from the bottom, bro. Fifth from the bottom. Yet you got a quarterback who's an MVP and a great offensive line. Testament to both of them. Without, I'm sure you haven't had a chance to dive in. Don't that sound about right, though, if you really think about it? Like James Cook is an established top 12, top 10 to top 15 running back in the league, maybe. But other than that, skill position, Shakir's good, maybe even very good, but I wouldn't say he's great in comparison to his peers right now. There's a lot of what ifs with the skill position players. 28th. Is that a little surprised when you hear that? The Bills are 28th in skill position players. What's your first reaction?
I think when you think of it overall, it's like, man, that seems really low for a team that was top 5 in offense last year. But then you dig into it. Okay, who do they actually have on offense? Is James Cook. And yes, if you like Khalil Shakir, which I do, I think he's a very good, very solid player out there. But again, there's a bunch of players, there's a bunch of pieces. They all have their roles and they fit it perfectly. And that's what I do like about Brandon Beane. All Every Man Eats. They have different players that fit different roles and they play those roles really well. I still think you need more from the tight end position, but that's a story for a different day. But it just proves how talented Josh Allen is, that he can take a quote unquote 28th ranked overall offense in skill positions and make them into a top 5 unbelievable offense that nobody can seem to stop unless you're trying to QB sneak to the left. Sorry, I had to do that one.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I haven't really had time to digest it and break it down. Well, my first thought was, makes sense. I also say I could see that easily jumping up a dozen spots or more just in 1 year. If Keon Coleman has a breakthrough season, if Dalton Kincaid gets back to what he did as a rookie, if Josh Palmer plays his best football now that he's in a great situation with the Bills, there's certainly room to grow. You know, Ray Davis in year 2. So I can see them moving up, but that doesn't sound right. Here's a question that I pondered here as we're getting ready to wind down. What do you think, like, if you, I guess this is a way of indirectly stating how important you think Josh Allen is in regards to the rest of this roster. What do you think the Bills' record would be if they had an average quarterback on this team right now? Like, let's just say, I refuse to even use the injury word and no jinxing on this show, but if Josh decided to sit out the season, okay, I don't give a shit. He's going to make movies. He ain't playing football. That's all I'll say. What would the Bills' record be right now with this roster? But let's say an average quarterback, not a scrub. I'm not going to say a scrub, like not Mitch Trubisky, not Zach Wilson. Let's say an average quarterback. And to me, I define average as somebody like Geno Smith, okay? Or somebody like Kirk Cousins, even though he's old, but he can still chuck the ball and he's got shortcomings, and that makes him average. A Geno Smith, a Kirk Cousins, they're the Bills' quarterback. This complete other 52-man roster that we'll see in September. How good do you think this team would be? Where do you think they would be?
Oh, that is scary to think about. Josh, don't
It
go
is very scary to think about.
6-11, 7-10. I mean, we just said they're the 28th ranked weapons on offense. It's because Josh Allen makes everybody so better. If you have Geno Smith, who is no slouch whatsoever, you saw what he did in Seattle. Kirk Cousins, you saw the days and what a superstar Justin Jefferson was, and Jordan Addison, and so on and so forth. They're no slouches. I'm not critiquing them, but I think Josh Allen elevates all the good to great players. And I think what Kirk Cousins or Geno Smith will do is just those players will play at their skill level. You can't really bring them up to another level that Josh Allen does. So I think it would be between a 6-11, a 7-10 team. If you're really lucky and you get really good coaching and James Cook goes absolutely bananas and you can't stop him, maybe you can get to a 9-8 and possibly be like a Pittsburgh that stinks in the playoffs every year, and you hate them because they continue to just have winning records and they should just blow it up, and so on. It's a different story for another day. I have a bet Mike Tomlin will never win another Super Bowl, and it's a lot of money on the line between me and my brother. But I think maybe you can sneak in a 7 seed in the playoffs, but I think you'd be in no man's land again, where you're not bad enough to go get a good quarterback, but you're not good enough to do anything in the playoffs. Kind of what they were for 17 years.
I landed on, you said the team. I landed on a Pittsburgh Steelers ceiling for this team. I think potentially if the talent stays healthy on defense with Milano, Taron Johnson, if those guys are actually on the field all year, some of these rookies develop, Bosa is somewhat of a factor. I think the defense is enough to keep them in a lot of games. We talked about the offensive line. I do think that is an asset. With or without Josh Allen, that's a good offensive line. Aaron Kromer's a great coach. They can run the football. And again, you're not getting garbage plate quarterback play either. You're getting average. Geno Smith's not bad. Kirk Cousins is not bad. That was what I was thinking too. I was like, Pittsburgh Steelers type of ceiling without Josh Allen. A playoff run? Hell no. Last point here, and I'm gonna let you go. Camp's real close. We'll be talking, I'm sure, during camp a couple times. But as we're recording this today, literally 2 weeks out from Bill's training camp, what's a storyline or two that you maybe, as things stand right now, at least anyway, that you're looking forward to following?
If you're going to hold me down to one, I think it's Hairston versus White for the opposite starting cornerback, because I think even Sal Capaccio said it. That seems like the only starting job that's currently out there. And he also said, depending on Cole Bishop's health, they want him to have that job. I completely agree with everything you said. But if you're looking at like secondary roles, I think you've said it multiple times on this show, especially when I'm here. Samuel versus Moore, who wins that battle? Because it will determine not just. I think they both make the team, but who's going to be the healthy scratch and who's going to be in the lineup on game day? It will be very interesting, because if Moore can play and Samuel is the type of Samuel that we saw at the later half of the season, not when he was injured in the first half, that's going to be one heck of a battle. And like you said, if the players actually play to what we hope they can be, I think this wide receiver room is deeper than it was last year. And with Josh Allen's play and elevating them, I think this team can get into the top 20 of that list of skilled position players. And I think there's some names out there. Again, I'm not trying to toot their horn. I know it's leading up to it and everybody's excited for football time, but I am excited to see what this wide receiver room can do. If, like you mentioned, if Coleman can take that next step and Kincaid can stay healthy and be what he was and to the next level in his rookie year, I'm excited to see that. But yeah, if you're going to hold me down to one position, it's going to be Hairston versus Tre'Davious White. Because if this is what, year 2 or 3 off those injuries, I'm not saying he's old Trey White. He'll never be old Trey White. But if he can lock down and be that steady number 2 opposite of Benford, maybe they can afford to let Hairston learn a little bit behind him.
100% agree. And those will be my top 2. I'm going to throw you 3 real quick ones here on the way out the door. 1, James Cook, his participation, his level, his attitude during camp, and you'll get a good sense. Yeah. We'll know. Is that going to be an issue or not? Plus, you might catch a couple things from HBO. Who knows? But anyway, that's going to be 1. 2, how the defensive tackles, and I know it kind of sounds boring, but I'll be at camp a lot, as much as I possibly can. I won't be at all the practices, but I will be at least half of them, if not more. How Deion Walker and Dwayne Carter both look in that one tech role behind DaQuan Jones, who I have just lost faith in as anything more than a guy who's out there on the field. If one of those guys could kind of look really good in camp to give you some promise there. And then the last thing, and I know people ain't going to like hearing this shit, but I'm telling you, I'd be willing to throw down some money. It's how it's going to be. Everyone just assumes Taylor Rapp, Cole Bishop. I am here to tell you right now on July 9th, it's going to be Taylor Rapp. And then it's going to be Cole Bishop or DeMar Hamlin or Forrest, because Sean McDermott is going to have him a competition for that. You're going to see day 1, it'll be Bishop. Day 2, Hamlin might run with the ones. You're going to see a competition at free safety, and Cole Bishop is not going to be handed that job. I expect him to win it. I think Sean McDermott wants him to win it, but just like with Hairston versus Trey White, Cole Bishop is not going to get handed that job. So I'm looking forward to seeing how he looks and if they have, to what extent they have a safety battle.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I agree with that one. If you want another one, what about the punting battle?
Yeah.
You got a Puntapalooza?
I don't even know who the punters are. I forgot, man. I look it up. I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's right. But Joe Biscaglia will be excited about that.
Yeah, that's why I threw that one out there.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you're following PK on Twitter. I'll put a link to all that stuff in the show notes. Of course, Buffalo Sports Collective, Bills, Sabres, and especially once they roll around the Bandits, you will not find better coverage of that team anywhere. Promise you. This was a good time, buddy. Thanks for coming on. You're always reliable, by the way. I throw this behind the scenes stuff, man. Whenever I reach out to PK, man, if there's any way you could do this show, you're always down to do it with me, especially if I'm in a pinch. I'm like, oh, shit, man, I got to get a guess, and I got to get it with only 1 day notice, dude. You always step up, man. Love that about you. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me again.
All right, guys, I'll be back 2 more episodes for the week, because I'll have a bonus Saturday episode this week. But anyway, tomorrow's show, we kind of got around it a little bit here with PK today. I'm going all in on the Sabres tomorrow. Chris Ostrander joins me. Talk to you guys then.